Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I'm your host, Alex Martinez, and today I am really excited to have a new friend of mine, Dr. Robert Kim, on the show. Robert is a first-degree black belt under Giva Santana. He is the owner of, correct me if I'm wrong, One Jiu Jitsu Redlands. Did I get it right? Nice. Out of Tustin, California. He is a practicing dentist. And Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. I'm so pumped to be on your show, man. Thank you for letting me on here.
Oh man, thank you so much for being on, dude. Like, I as much as I can, I've been researching your background a little bit, and I want to really jump into the one thing that you and I were just talking about, really caught my eye. I want to talk about your comeback from injury. And I talked to a lot of jiu-jitsu people, a lot of my friends about, what was that one injury or one thing that happened that made you almost like walk away from the martial art. And you have an interesting incident and comeback story. And why don't you let everybody know about that?
Yeah, so I started jiu-jitsu around the end of 2007, began 2008. And I went all the way up to 4-stripe white belt. I was about to get my blue belt, but Halloween night in 2010, I was in a car accident pretty bad where I injured my neck and my herniated about 8 millimeters into my spine. It's my spinal cord. So what happens then is blood stops reaching to the rest of your bodies. So if my right hand wasn't able to move and my left hand wasn't able to feel, and it was kind of all throughout all my limbs. And so I had emergency surgery. It was called ACDF surgery, where they go through the middle of your neck and they go through to your spine and they remove that herniation and they put a bone graft in there, and they put some metal screws. So I remember my instructor back then, he told me, "Hey Rob, you have to come in." I already knew he was going to give me a black belt. A blue belt. And he was trying to get me in, but I wasn't feeling it. I was like, no, I'm not ready. And so at that time, when I was a white belt, I was always getting stacked. When I was getting in triangles, I wouldn't let go, or I would hold on to that choke a little bit too long. I had a lot of ego when I first started. And so I think that also contributed to the herniation of my disc, because when I got in that car accident, it couldn't handle the whiplash. But that being said, I ended up throwing away my gis, throwing away my belt, and it was a hard thing, but I said, you know what, I can't do jiu-jitsu anymore. This is going to hurt my neck. But as the years went on, 2-3 years went on, then Instagram and Facebook started blowing up. Then in my feed was more jiu-jitsu videos.
Yeah.
And I missed it. I was like, man, this jiu-jitsu is I need it. I was getting fat, I was getting depressed. And so I went back and I started training again. I took off all my stripes. And I think that was the best thing I ever did, just starting from the ground up, because I started with a new mindset. And this mindset was, hey, leave the ego at the door. It doesn't matter if I get tapped out, just don't get hurt. And if I don't get hurt, that is my pathway to doing jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life. And since then, I really haven't had any other serious injuries, just because I know who I am. I'm not going to be like ADCC champion. I'm a hobbyist that wants to spread the new jiu-jitsu knowledge to everybody else. So everybody, I think, has their own pathway in jiu-jitsu. Not everyone's going to be a competitor. A lot of people are teachers. A lot of people are hobbyists, just trying to help other people. So I recognized that early, and I think identifying that early was huge in my success in becoming who I am today in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And I want to go back a little bit. And you said you had a feeling, or you had a strong inclination that your instructor was about to give you a blue belt. Were you still injured at the time?
So at that time, I had like my neck brace on. I was still healing from it.
Yeah.
And it was a hard decision, because what am I going to do? Go in with a neck brace and get my blue belt? And it was a lot of emotion, where like, I can't accept this. But I think if I did, my ego still would have been there. So when I went back to the training room, that ego would have actually been a detriment to me more. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. So you'd been feeding that ego at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Wow. And how hard was it to peel the stripes off of your belt and just wear a plain white belt when you went back?
It was, you know what? I always make a positive out of it. So I used it as an advantage, saying, "Hey, I'm the new white belt, but I'm really not a white belt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have some skills." So I
Yeah.
use that, and then and when I go against other white belts or blue belts, I'm like, "Oh man, you've done this restarted I'm like, "Yeah, but I just restarted again." So I just use that as an advantage in my head, knowing that I'm not a pure white belt.
Yeah. 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 So so you get your blue belt, and at that point, were you pretty confident in your ability, like the stability of your neck and everything that was going on, or were you still kind of like, you know, a little gun shy? Because I have a lot of students that have injuries, and the biggest thing that they have trouble overcoming is that fear
Yes.
of re-injury.
Yes. So I always have that. It's not really fear, but I'm aware. There's awareness. So now I change my whole game up. So I think working through injuries is actually beneficial in your evolution of your guard game, of your top game. So say like my right hand is hurt. I'm not going to use my right hand. So I'm going to switch to a left underhook, and it's going to be very foreign to me. But your brain does this thing called neuroplasticity, where it can keep learning things. So now if I'm always working on my left side and I've developed a new guard on my left side, when my right side is healed, I've actually encompassed a bigger game. So but if you feed the ego and then you still are doing the same thing, it's how you work through the injury. You got to play smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, agreed. So a few, I don't call them injuries, I call them blessings. A few blessings that I've gotten. My first major one was a groin pull. I was doing a tournament in it was in Vegas. It was back when they had the Vegas Open, and they had that little venue. It was really cool, that little sports venue. And the mats were fairly new, and my knees split. So one knee was on my opponent, one knee was on the mat. He hip shifted out, and I felt my entire groin on the left side, just, it went rip. And I was purple from my knee to my belly button. I mean, it was really bad. But yes, I took about a week off, but you know how it is. I wanted to get back on the mat right away, but I started playing my other side, or my bad side. And I developed both sides because of that injury, or that blessing, right? And then when I've broken my foot a couple of times being stupid, but it's taught me to play a different game. So I know, like, I can't hold a closed guard very long because my foot's pretty messed up, but then that helped me develop an open guard, right?
Yes.
And just little things like that, like finding the positive in it and finding ways to work around it. I 100% agree with you. I mean, got to be smart, right? You got to be smart, but you can't, if you can check your ego and get smashed for a little while, you'll develop a more well-rounded game, won't you?
Of course. And that actually translates into life also. So if you're always, if you don't work around it, you got to keep working towards something, and you got to think about what angles can I take to become better, but still nurse this injury. And a lot of it is communication to your training partners. Hey, my neck, I broke my neck. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you get me, I might tap a little early, or and also when I talk to myself, I might get stacked in a bad position. Then instead of trying to find it, maybe I'll try to find a new angle and roll out of it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I don't allow anybody to stack me. I either open up the guard and bail, or, you know,
exactly.
It's one of those things. Yeah. So let's talk about how you found jujitsu. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was in dental school, and when I was a kid, I was doing this art called Hapkido, and I was a brown belt. And I was at Raging Waters one day, and I got in a fight with another kid, and this kid totally messed me up, and I was devastated. And then I was like, man, this Hapkido sucks. It doesn't work.
No offense to the Hapkido practitioners. I'm
Yeah.
fantastic.
And so I was like, man, I wasted all this time, this years. But something about the martial art I liked about the discipline, about respect. I really love that part. But Hapkido did not work in my situation. So I keeping that in my head, in dental school, one of my friends, Jerome Ocampo, he doesn't train anymore. But he asked me one day, he was like, hey, there's this new jiu-jitsu spot. Do you want to try it out? And back in like 2000, early 2008, it wasn't that big. It was very small. And so we were in this little taekwondo gym. I remember I had to bring out the mats every day and then put the mats back every day. It was like, I was like the karate kid back then.
Yeah.
And so we started training. After school, we would go there, train, and the community is what really I liked about it a lot, because me and the professors, we talk all night, we talk about life, and everyone that does jiu-jitsu knows that you don't just go and roll, you go and learn more about yourself through the community.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't want to say it's being lost, but there are times I remember being at the academy, like well after closing, just sitting on the mat and just talking, and like, okay. And my professor's like, okay, I have to leave now. So you guys have to get out. But I think that's the most beautiful part about being an academy owner. Like you see, especially from the very beginning, because I mean, we just opened a couple of years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And, at first it's like, okay, we're getting all these new students and we're getting to know them, but they're also getting to know each other. And then time passes and they're hugging it out and shaking hands and exchanging phone numbers. And then time passes and you can't get them out of the academy because they're sitting there talking. It's beautiful, right? It's really cool. But that development, I don't know what it is. And I'm sure there's some science behind that, but that close proximity and suffering together and just being around the same people that want to do hard things together. There's just something about that community, right?
Yes. There's a book called Tribal Leadership. I would recommend any gym owner to read that. The owner of Aloha Roll in Maui, he actually recommended me to this book. But we have to consider our gyms like we're tribes. And as tribes, we go through trials and tribulations together. But we all need this type of leadership so this tribe can pursue and be persistent and just help each other out. So yeah, I always consider us, even though we're, jiu-jitsu is one big community, there's tribes within that community. And even inside the gym, there's going to be tribes within the tribes.
Yes.
We have to always make sure we're catering to that, making sure everyone feels safe, they feel loved, and they feel like they're getting supported, and they feel like they're getting better.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the tribes within the tribe, because you got your morning guys, you got your nogi guys, right? You got your midday guys, you got your evening guys, and got your competitors. And so I didn't think about that. Yeah. And every one of them needs, I guess the tribal leader to be a part of their sub community, right? So we got to make time to be there in the mornings, be there, for competitors, and be there for them, evening guys, stuff like that. So that's really cool, man. So tell me about your academy. What are you guys all about, man? What is it that you're trying to spread there?
So here, so Giva, he's our main instructor. He's my mentor. He's actually was in Bellator. He's won so many different championships. But when he made the word one, so that one is our brand, I asked him, why did you name it one? And he said, basically, if you're trying to be an ADCC champion, if you're maybe trying to be an MMA champion, if you're trying to be just a hobbyist, or whatever you're using this to be, this is the one place you want to be. You can come here, and this one gym, our one brand, can fulfill all those needs. Whoever you are, we will fulfill your needs in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. That is so cool. That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. And do you guys have a big competitive, do you guys have big competitors? A lot of competitors there?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of competitors. We have a lot of right now we have our kids class competitors. Our kids are killers out there. Nice. They're training on a Sunday. One of our guys, Kyle, he's like, some of these kids are throwing up, then going back in and training more.
That's awesome.
We have an executive time like at noon where all the brown belts, black belts, and all the seasoned blues and purple come in and just train hard.
Yeah.
So
Is
yeah,
is that their one class to really train hard? I mean, or do they train in the evenings, or how does that work?
so the way that's structured is there's one class, there's a few classes, but there's an early morning class, there's a noon class, there's a night class, there's classes everywhere. I think when you're opening a gym, you have to kind of, if you want to grow, you have to cater to everybody's time.
Yeah, right? Of course, agreed. Yeah.
So a lot of the competitors, they treat it almost like a full-time job.
Yeah.
So when it's a full-time job, I think they would train either like early in the morning at 12 p.m. So that's when the hardcore competitors come and train. So that's when we'll see them. I try to train with them as much as I can, but due to me owning my dental clinic and having to work in the jiu-jitsu side, I'm not there to make it. But when I do plan to compete, or if I'm competing, then I will try to make those as much as possible.
That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about competition, because you kind of let me in on something today. You're going to go to Master Worlds today, or you're going to go to Master Worlds this year, rather.
I'm planning to. So I'm gonna let my instructors know. So hopefully.
Oh, they don't know yet? I hope they watch this. I hope they watch this. And
yeah. So now you're putting the pressure on me. So now, yeah.
No, no pressure, no pressure. I just wanted to get your take on how do you prep for competitions, being, you're a professional in your industry, you're a owner of an academy, or co-owner of an academy. You're trying to get your competitors and all of your students, make them feel loved, and then you're trying to create a situation where you can prepare yourself. Where does that start?
So usually when I'm planning to compete, or I'm going to put myself to a vigorous a goal, I got to make sure, number one, my health is good, right? Because the health is going to feed the mind. We got to look at our stomach as the roots of a tree, and then the brain as like the leaves. That's the output. So if we're not eating healthy, if we're drinking too much alcohol, if we're doing what we're not supposed to be doing, I'm not going to have energy throughout the day. So since I'm spread pretty thin, time is very a consistent thing. But the only way to gain more time is to gain more energy. So now I can multitask, I can make better decisions. But the only way to make better decisions is to eat good, clean, nutritious foods.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And also put the output, do jujitsu. I do a lot of cold plunges. I do saunas. Whatever the research is showing, I'm probably going to navigate my way. Read a lot of books, practice a lot of jujitsu, not get hurt. And also at the same time, teach a lot of jujitsu wherever I can. I will surround myself with more competitive people, and get my butt kicked more, and try to really fine tune my game. But at the end of the day, win or lose, I'm just still a hobbyist. I'm just doing it to push myself to become better. And just as a tribal leader, if I put myself out there, then all my friends, the community, everyone in the school says, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
100%.
So that's the real goal of it.
100%. I 100% agree. Whenever I'm training hard, or whenever, especially when I show, when I'm teaching a class and I show a move that may look like you need to be flexible to do it, I am not. I am not flexible. And I'll tell everybody, I'll say, I make a joke, I'm 105 years old, and I'm as flexible as a 2x4. So if I can do it, you can do it. So I just want to put that in their head. Like, if Coach Alex can do it, I can do it too. Right. But tell me about, you mentioned nutrition, right? Being at the top, because if nutrition's bad, then your brain isn't as bad. And then the energy management goes down. So what type of diet plan are you on?
So I was trained under Mike Dulce. Shout out to Mike Dulce. Yeah. So I'm from Loma Linda. Loma Linda is one of the 5 or 6 blue zones in the world. And what a blue zone is basically we're the longest living people. And so what do these blue zone people do? And so I connected with Mike Dulce because even though he doesn't live in a blue zone, what he was teaching coincided with how I was taught. So we're not doing keto, we're not doing these fad diets. I know sometimes the fad diets do work, but only up to a certain extent, right? So say like if you're 30 or 40% body fat, you could go on any fat diet and you can lose 50 and 100 pounds, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to really like go from 15% to 12% to 10% to 9% to 8% body fat, you've got to do something different, right?
Yeah.
These fat diets are not going to work, especially if you're training jujitsu.
Yeah.
So the mornings I'll eat what is called the breakfast bowl, like a lot of oatmeals, fruits, chia seeds, hemp seeds, because they have a lot of protein, and I'll eat that really quick. Why? Because digestion is a very big part of recovery. People don't understand how big digestion is, because when you digest food, it takes a lot of energy. And when it takes a lot of energy, it takes away from your brain. So you need foods that are easily digestible. So oatmeal, all these whole food diets are going to be very digestible. When I'm cutting weight, I'll stay away a little bit from red meats. I'll do more chicken and fish because it is easily more digestible. A lot of eggs. I know eggs are more expensive, but
Yeah.
you can
Especially
get them
now.
at farms, and then you can still save a little bit of money. Lot of vegetables. We focus more on the macronutrients have been on the rise. That's been the fad because everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. But in reality, for performance, you have to focus on the micronutrients, because the micronutrients is going to be the carrier for all the elements, the calcium, the sodium, the potassium. And if they're not balanced correctly, you might just pee it all out and not get any benefit from it. So you want the best bang for your buck, and then mix these foods correctly so they'll enter your body, and then you'll get the most out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you time your meals? Because I find that I have a pre-workout meal. Anytime I have a workout coming up, I make sure I eat an hour and a half before it, because I find that that's the correct amount of time to kind of digest and, and go and do a really tough workout without throwing up. Right. Do you time your meals as well? Do you do something like that?
I will time my meals 100%. Everything's about timing. Timing is everything. So, but everybody's body is different. So let me say, there's no silver bullet, right? What might work for you might not work for you. For me, Michael Jordan always ate a steak before a big game because it would carry him through the fourth quarter. Yeah. If I ate a steak before I did jujitsu, I might throw up. So that's a difference, right?
Yeah.
So I remember what GSP, George St. Pierre, he likes to go in hungry because he says a hungry lion's going to fight harder than a lion that's full and fed, right? Okay. So you always got to take these things into perspective. But what I will do is so glucose is the fastest energy. It'll just go into your bloodstream and then you can be energized. So my favorite thing is to get those honey sticks and boom, pop it right before it, and I'm energized. And and it's easy, it's not going to sit in my stomach. And I will have enough energy to carry me through the training session. And so the way your body works is inside your muscles, there's going to be glycogen stores. Mm-hmm. So imagine like your muscles having these, it's like a cup. And this cup is filled with glucose, and imagine it's just water. And as you go through your workout, now you have nothing in this cup. So now it needs more energy. So it's going to use it out of your muscles. But hey, we need to keep our muscles. Yeah. Well, not eat our muscles. So number one, a lot of people will go straight to the protein shake after a hard workout, which is very good. But what we need to do is go through the glycogen fill that cup back up. And what we're going to fill that glycogen store up is with sugar. So sugar is going to be your best bet to fill up your glycogen and not lose muscle mass, and also do your protein and all that stuff. So I will make sure I eat some glucose, like a fruit or another honey stick. and then when I get home, then I'll eat a bigger meal because my body needs it to replenish.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you when you talk about sugar. I 100% agree. By the way, that's pretty much what I do.
Mhm.
And I was going to ask you what sources of sugars do you ingest? Do you do mostly fruit, or do you do kind of processed stuff?
I'll do. I mean, I do. I don't do much. So if in a training session where I want to be super clean, I'll just do whole foods.
Mhm.
If I wanted like a really fast sugar, I'll do honey.
Yep.
But a lot of times I'm busy. I won't eat these legendary packs.
Yeah.
Quest
Yeah.
bars.
Fresh, yeah.
They taste so good.
Yeah. Have you ever had barbell or bearbell?
I have not.
Dude, bearbell, Bare bell,
Well,
bearbell.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
So
Definitely.
good, so good, and you got to pace yourself because you'll eat them like candy. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. That's another problem. I was eating all these Quest bars and I was getting all fat. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and and in terms of managing energy, because I have a lot of teammates and a lot of listeners that they work a full-time job, and then they come and train. They want to train like they want to train at the highest level possible for their abilities and age, right?
Of course.
But when you talk about managing energy, I think a lot of people neglect like how much energy brain power takes, right? If you have a demanding job that requires you to make a lot of decisions, and you neglect to feed the roots, right? You neglect to feed the body. What that does at 7 p.m. when you're trying to execute at the highest level in a jiu-jitsu class, which is both physical and mentally demanding. So what are some things that you could recommend for people that are going through their day that way? How to feed the body, how to keep it energized, and have that burst at 7 p.m.
So you have to front load your energy. So that's why I've fought at 195. Right now I'm 168. I've fought at 180. I fought at all those levels. But I remember when getting down to 195, 180, I did like a ketogenic diet.
Hmm.
And it works, but if you're not, so the problem with ketogenic is a keto diet is if you're only eating a certain amount at a certain time and you're training at 7, that might not be optimal for that. And you're going to be tired for that. It might work in the beginning because you have all these fat stores to kind of help
Yep.
it release, but there's going to be a time where you hit a wall.
Yeah.
And now we got to pivot.
Yep.
So when we pivot from that and now we got to go up, now we got to think, all right, what am I doing? What is my job? So I'm a dentist, so I got to eat a lot more fats because I got to think more.
Yeah.
If you're doing more like contractor work, you might need to have a little bit more glucose. You really need to work with a nutritionist to see where you're at, because every person needs a plan. But definitely, I eat breakfast every morning. I eat snacks throughout the day, just whole food snacks, a lot of peanut butter, fruits, bananas, coconut water. Water is very, very important, right? So water is 80% of your body, and it goes into your brain. So dehydration will cause you to underperform. And also the most important thing, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommends each human being, adult, to have 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep per day. And people are watching Jocko and all that stuff. I'm just going to wake up at 5. No, but Jocko sleeps like at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He can sleep.
Yeah.
And so all this information is very hard to navigate through, but I have to prioritize my sleep. Or if not, then I have to pay back what is called the sleep debt during the weekend.
Yeah.
I have to make sure I'm timing my meals correctly and drinking enough water. And once you're doing all of that, and sunlight also, right? Sunlight is very, very important. 80% of people who died in the ICU from COVID were vitamin D deficient. And how do we get vitamin D? We get it from the sun.
Yeah.
And so science is in a time capsule, right? So a lot of stuff isn't unveiled till after a lot of this data is kind of gone through. Yeah. So I remember like in the 80s and 90s, we would stay away from the sun no matter what, because it would cause skin cancer.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like what? Who wants to be in the sun? But
Yeah.
then now the research is coming out and go, oh wait, we need the sun? Yes, we need the sun. We don't, and everything in moderation, right? But if you're working in an office, if you're doing podcasts, if you're in jujitsu, you're not probably getting enough sun. Go outside, take a walk, get the sun. All this stuff has to do with your energy levels.
Yeah, and the morning and evening sun is the most critical, right? The red light, and they talk about getting that in your eyes as well, right? To feed your eyes, feed your brain, and it's really critical. And I am terrible about that because I because I have my morning routine, and then I got to get to the academy, and then I'm do the academy thing, and then I come home and I have dinner, and I don't know if I saw the sun all day, right? So
Yeah,
I got to do a better job at going for walks throughout the day. So I'm really curious, people in your position, because you have a very busy life. So, and you're very successful, and I'd like to know what your morning rituals are, what your morning routine looks like.
So my morning routine. So it really changes from day to day. I don't like to keep myself in a box, right? I think that would actually hinder me. So Mondays, I know it's a Monday. It sucks, right?
Yeah.
So I will take it a little bit slower on a Monday. So I will wake up. I have a devotional every morning, because I am spiritual. I'll have a devotion, and some people call it meditation. I will pray. Some people call it meditation, but I do the same thing. Some people call it gratitude journal, but I pray and I'm grateful for everything. So I do that my 15 minutes. After that, what I will do is I will go out in the sun. I will go out, and because once the sun hits me, my body's back into its circadian rhythm. The sun has something that triggers the melatonin to shut off or something like that. It's like a feedback system. So I will do that. Sometimes if I'm really tired, I'll just look in my cold plunge. I'll do a cold plunge if I feel like it. It really depends how many surgeries I'm having that day. Because if I have more that day, I will work out, do a cold plunge, take a walk. I will do as much as I can so the rest of the day seems easy.
So you front load the day, and then
I will front load the day on my crazy days.
Right.
The crazy days.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's talk about cold plunge. I hate it. Cold, wet sucks. I used to do cryo, which was cool because you're 3 minutes in and out. By the time I was breaking, it was time to get out. You know what I mean? But tell me about the cold plunge. Why is it so effective?
So cold plunge, I've heard there's a lot of benefits physically, but I use it as a mental clutch.
Okay.
So how many times did you want to do something, but your brain tells you, no, you shouldn't do it, right?
All the time.
Almost all the time.
Yeah.
So I go into the cold. So right when I open up the freezer, I look at it, and I already know my brain saying, no, you shouldn't go in there. Right? But how many times have you tried to, even starting this podcast, right? How many times your brain must have told you a million times why you shouldn't have done it?
Oh, I went 2 years without doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was 2 years from the time I said I'd like to do one to the time I hit record was 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and that's the struggle. Our own. So the battleground is the mind, right? So the cold plunge actually helps me to battle that. It's all psychological. So when I'm in the cold plunge, and I've timed this at 30 seconds, always my body, and it took a little time to recognize this, but my body tells me why I shouldn't be in the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And I need to get out.
Yep.
And so in the beginning, I broke and I got out. But after like a couple times at 30 seconds, now I know, now I'm telling myself, oh, that my brain's telling me that I should get out. Oh, now it's 30 seconds. And then now I hit 60 seconds, and then my brain's telling me to get out again. Oh, this must be a minute. So now when I jump into the cold plunge, I don't really use a timer anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm always in there. When I get out, it's 2.5 minutes every single time. It's weird how your body and your mind, it can actually talk to each other. And that's why I use the cold plunge, because it always sucks, but I use it to tell myself, hey, just do it. You're not going to die. Just do it.
Yeah. Now, do you alternate? Because when I was doing ice baths with at a buddy of mine's place, it's called Unfair Advantage in Tempe. He would have us go into the sauna, and we would sauna until you start to sweat, and then you get into the ice, and then you go back into the sauna, start to sweat, and then get back into the ice. Do you alternate that stuff?
So I do have a sauna, and I was listening to the Huberman podcast recently, and I always just go with the data.
Yep.
So what he said is I think that's called like the Nordic cycle, when you're going into a hot, really hot, and going to the cold. He said actually, when you go into the sauna, you should just go into the sauna just one time a week.
Oh,
So
wow.
that one time a week, and that's how to promote human growth hormone you're naturally, right? Of course, if you go more, you're going to save yourself from cardiovascular diseases, strokes. You'll have those benefits. But which benefits are we going for? We're jujitsu guys. We're older males. We want human growth hormone, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So he says go once a week. So that's what I do. But after the sauna, I will hit the cold tank.
Yeah.
I will hit the cold tank. But I try to do the cold tank at least 12 minutes a week.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a lot, but it seems doable. I mean, doable, right? I mean,
4 days is 3 minutes.
Okay.
And if and maybe I'll do a 5-minute day if I didn't catch up. But I'm very like not strict with I don't try to like make such a harsh schedule on myself, because then that's when I start getting depressed and like, oh man, what's the point of life? I kind of give myself a little bit of room. So yeah, I'll play with it, but as long as I follow those principles, because that is the latest thing I've heard is sauna once a week and then cold plunge 12 minutes a week.
Nice. And so do you dedicate, so here's what I do. If I do like an hour of training, then I'll dedicate a half hour of recovery. So if I have like hard training sessions in a day, I'll do a full hour of recovery. So, 1 hour equals 30 minutes. Do you have anything like that you try to balance?
Yes. I will try to do, there's something here called stretch lab. So I go to the stretch lab where someone just stretches a couple areas out. Nice. Sometimes you do need someone to kind of look over your mobility and all that stuff, because I'm only myself.
Yeah.
I will do the myofascial release, which is like using the foam rollers and all that stuff. Like I said, I'm not like so strict about 1 hour to 30 minutes, but if I do feel it in my body, then I will address it.
Yeah.
And I will try to say if I'm feeling tired, or if I worked out twice and did jujitsu, then the next day I'm too sore to do anything. So I will use that time to recover. I will do more foam rolling and not push myself where it's like I will hurt myself, but at least now it's time for active recovery. So I listen to my body a lot. I'm very well tuned with my body.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So let's talk a little bit about your jujitsu training, right? Specifically. So, do you go into, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. So do you still go into jujitsu training with a child's like mind, or do you go in like with a specific thing that you're working on? Or is it more like, you take life as it comes? How do you approach a training session?
So that's a very good question. I was going over that with a couple teammates and students of mine. Is in anything, you should always be mindful, right? So if you're going to go train and just go to open mat without a real objective, you're going to get a good workout, but you wouldn't have really learned as much, right? So today, this week, I was looking at my friend's Instagram, and he does brato platas very well, and so now I'm trying to refine my brato plata, the shoulder locks.
Yep.
And so today I've been trying to hit it, but sometimes I'm not in that position, so I'll try to go back into that position, which actually gives me a purpose for that training session. And coming out of it, I've learned something. So if I haven't learned something that time, I'm not getting the most out of it. Like I said, everything's about maximizing your time. And if you're not having a purposeful training session, you're not maximizing. And I think the higher you get, like, purple, brown, black belt, you really need to maximize it, because white belt, it's like a flood of information. You're drinking through a fire hose. It's like, you don't really have to be mindful. You just show up, you're gonna get something.
Yeah.
But sometimes these roles feel like, like you're not learning much. So those are the times when that's where I learned to be very purposeful about my training.
I love it. I love it. Tell me about going through blue belt, right? We get our blue belt and you have a unique story. So it may not have affected you. It may not have affected you as it does other people, where they get the blue belt and you're going to be a blue belt at least 2 years, right? At least. And then people get their blue belt and they kind of fade and maybe they disappear. Maybe they get into other interests, and then purple belt comes and maybe they stop competing, and then brown belt. What kept you going? What kept you really, what kept that drive inside of you? Because I can share mine, but I want to hear your perspective.
So actually, like 2 years, I think all jiu-jitsu people, we do jiu-jitsu for a reason, because we have to feel something in our hearts, in our minds, keep us busy, keep our minds busy. But I had a lot of vices when growing up, but when I was a blue belt, I did get another injury where I did stop training for like 2-3 months, but I got right back on the mats. But the original injury of my neck kind of set the tone of everything. We're like, hey, I want to get a black belt, and I want to get it in a timely manner. Reason being is because when I came back to the gym, the guys who were white belts with me, now they were like purples and browns, and I'm like, yeah, this sucked. I could have stuck around. In my mind, I was saying that. So that really drove the mindset of consistency and showing up. Consistency, the law of consistency is actually law. It's a law of physics. You show up, something's going to happen.
Yep.
I mean, not saying that I didn't go through any problems. I had like a little bit of a drinking problem like a couple of years ago, and I would actually go to the gym and then not even go into the gym. I would go in the parking lot, and I would be, I would drink in the car and not going.
Wow.
I was going through a lot of stuff like that too, but I got out of it. But the same thing that stayed consistent was the jiu-jitsu. And also my son trains jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
so
nice.
My son, he started when he was 4.5. He's 12 now. He's a little beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know I have to set an example for him from the beginning. So that's kind of what got me. And as he grew, we grew together.
Yeah.
And so that's my teammate. And so I think it's really cool when you have a son that watches you and you guys kind of go right on each other's energy. I think that really helped me out a lot.
Yeah, for me, it was like a very I have a very competitive nature, in a non-athletic body. So it doesn't always jive, right? It doesn't always work out for me. But what I thought was, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I really started because I wanted to get in shape. That's it. That was it. I didn't want to go to like a big box gym or, do all that stuff. But I started, and then I got really into it. I started competing a little bit, and I was like, okay, this is kind of fun, right? But then I get my blue belt, and I'm like, okay, I got to set some kind of goal. I can't just go through the motions. Got to be something in it, right? So then I said, well, what if at the time, 43 years old, at 43, what if I was the best blue belt in the room? What if, right? Why not me? If there's going to be somebody, why not me? Didn't happen. Thanks a lot, Brendan Colonel. But anyway, but then, I got my purple belt, and I was like, man, what if I'm the best purple belt in the room? Right. So I just forced myself to punch, what do they call it? Punch heavier than your weight. Right. And just push myself. And then next thing you know, like I look down, I'm wearing a brown belt. I'm like, how the hell did this happen? Right. But that's one thing I tell my students, man, like, be undeniable. Show up, be undeniable. When this is something that a lesson that I learned in my corporate job when I didn't get a promotion that I applied for and I interviewed for. The person that told me no was the vice president, blah, 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 emperor or whatever. But he came down and he said, look, if I'm going to hire somebody in that position, it's got to be a no-brainer. Like, your job is to become the no-brainer. And I was like, Roger that. So, and that's what I tell people, be a no-brainer. When somebody says, the coaches get together and they're like, all right, promotions are coming up. Okay, this person's up for the purple. Yep, absolutely. right? That's what it's got to look like, right?
Yeah.
And if you apply yourself every day, you're making notes and you're taking notes and you're taking private lessons and you're investing in your jiu-jitsu life, you're going to end up a no-brainer.
Yes. And I believe now that I'm on like a higher belt, that the consistency is everything, like you're saying. Well, one of my instructors before, like and then people white belts ask me all the time, and when I tell them, be consistent, because I'd rather have everyone in the room ask why you're not a blue belt rather than why you're a blue belt.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right?
I love that.
I tell them all, like, you want to be the guy asking why isn't he a blue belt, right? And that's very powerful, because that's going to give you an edge throughout your jiu-jitsu career.
Yeah. And there's easy ways to kind of check and balance yourself, right? So if I have somebody, I started jiu-jitsu with 3 other guys. We all started the same week. We're still best friends today. And one thing that we did together is like, okay, we're going to figure out where the gaps are. And the gap was, this guy over here that has 3 or 4 stripes on his white belt is better than I am. What is he not doing that I'm going to do to catch him? Right. I'm going to close that gap on him. And it's a friendly competition. He's not my enemy by any means. Right. And then, same thing in blue belt, like, okay, who's the better blue belt? Who's at least 5, 10, 15, 20% better than I am? All right. That guy. How do I close the gap on that guy? What I realized is that the people that were super, super competitive would ramp up to a big tournament, and then they do the tournament and then they would disappear for a month. There's my opportunity. So I'm going to do the same tournament, but I'm going to show up on Monday. Right? I show up on Monday and I train my ass off. By the time they come back, I've closed that gap. Whether they like it or not, I've closed that gap. Yes. And that was my strategy the whole time.
Yes. There's even like our training is pretty intense. But even like there's some, there's brown belts and black belts who haven't, they kind of fall off for 6 months. And when they come back, they're getting completely wrecked by the blues. And that's the rewarding feeling if you're that guy on the mat. That consistency is like, in our world today, everything's about instant gratification. But jiu-jitsu is so pure, that's one of those things that actually rewards delayed gratification.
Yeah. And how do you, so this is a big question, and I mean this, like I'm asking your opinion because I just don't know. The delayed gratification, time and grade, right? It's really easy to give somebody a stripe. Super simple, right? No, it's just a stripe. But now they have 4 and they're not quite ready. Do you have that conversation with them, or do you just pass them over?
So for an adult or a kid?
An adult.
For an adult.
Yeah.
So for an adult, so depending if they're, and I would ask them, hey, you're going to compete, all that stuff.
Yep.
But I think a belt is like is your sword, right? So a belt can, and it happened to me too. And it happened to you too, guaranteed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A belt will either reward you or it'll push you. So if they're that 4 stripe, I'll have that talk with them and say, hey, I'm going to give you this belt, but you're going to feel like you might feel like you're getting wrecked.
It's going to be heavy.
It's going to push you to the next level.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I love the belt, because if we're only using the belt as a reward system, then, you could use it. I could give them a medal or whatever. Right. But if you're using it to push them, that's what the medal can't do. The medal, now you're going to go in at a higher level. These guys are going to wreck you. And now you're going to start from the bottom again. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is, man. It is. So tell me about when you got your black belt. What was that? What was that feeling like, getting your black belt? I mean, you came from, because most people didn't come from a broken neck at white belt, right? I mean, that's a big hurdle to overcome. And I don't mean to keep coming back to that, but huge, but that would take anybody out. That would take anybody out of the game. You get your black belt. Tell me about that day.
So of course, when you get your black belt, you do the black belt speech, right? So the first thing I said was, just because I'm a black belt doesn't make me better than anybody else. The only thing it showed, and it's going back to our last talk, was it just showed I was more consistent than everyone, and I was longer in the game, and I have more knowledge. So that's kind of like why I use the the black belt's the most, it just shows that you have the degree of consistency, and that you are so consistent, you are so you're accountable for yourself, and that you can take that. I would say my black belt was harder to get than my dental degree.
Wow.
100%, because the consistency, you know, people beating me up, and the talks I'm having with myself, and like why I shouldn't come to training session today. I have to battle with all of that.
We all do, man. We all do. And you know, I find there are times when I just don't want to be there. I just don't want to train today, and I have a great training session.
The best training session.
Yes, there's something about those days, right? I mean, okay, let me let you in on a little. I haven't told anybody about this. So I remember it was a Thursday afternoon, and I'm zigzagging all over town because that's my day off. So I try to get everything done in one day.
Yeah.
So I'm zigzagging all over town, and I'm like, I'm starving. I just got to eat something. And I stopped at Raising Cane's.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. And I have Raising Cane's. I had an amazing training session that night. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had a tournament not too like a week after, and I'm like, should I have Cane's today? Well, I don't know. It could have been the catalyst, right? I don't know, but
it could have been.
I came so close to eating Cane's the day of a tournament. I was way underweight. Like, I was good, you know? I was like, maybe I should, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, it's one of those things, man.
So, you know, with the principality goes like this, your mind is going to entertain a lot of thoughts, a lot of imaginations. Say sometimes I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack, or I feel unhealthy. Then you're actually going to be more unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
But if your principles are the same, like, all right, I don't feel like it, but the principle is to show up. If principles are going to be the forefront winner, than if you're always going to go with your emotions, because your emotions are going to give you weird thoughts all the time. But the principality is you showed up, and then you got the reward from it.
Yeah.
But if you fell through your own emotion, because I think our brain naturally goes in survival mode, tells us why we shouldn't do things. And that's another reason why I do the cold plunge, is because I can react through all these self-talks.
Yeah. And the same guy I was telling you about that has that place in Tempe where I did the ice bath. He told me the same thing. He was in a tournament. I was coaching him in that tournament. He was a white belt at the time. And we had, maybe 20 seconds left, and he had to do something big to win the match, and he did. And I asked him, I was like, what was it about that moment? How did you overcome that, fear, fatigue, all of that insecurity, everything, right? You're losing, and you got 30 seconds left. This is really bad. He flipped that switch, and he told me the same thing you just said. It was the ice. Getting in the ice every day. He gets in the ice every day, and that helps him overcome a lot of those issues. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah. The battleground is the mind. So I do a lot of mind work too. And I think honestly, cold plunge and jiu-jitsu it just does so much for your mind. If you're not doing it, man, I feel like I'm like just 10 steps ahead of you, if you're not doing jiu-jitsu or an ice bath.
Oh, 100%. It's really weird when you talk to people who don't do hard things.
Yes.
Right? I like talking to CrossFitters, man, because they put their bodies through it. Like, I mean, I have a lot of respect for those guys. I've done it once. I'm good. Yeah, one time's good. But when you talk to people who don't do hard things seem impossible. When you talk to people who do hard things every day, it's just another day, man.
Yes.
It's just another day of hard shit, right?
And you're a gym owner, so I know you get, you take some of the incoming calls, but sometimes, man, like I take the phone call and then it's just a bunch of excuses before they even started, why they're not doing it or why they should not start jiu-jitsu. I'm like, man, that's why you need jiu-jitsu to get yourself out of making all these excuses before you even show up.
Yeah. Yeah. We do a 6-week intro program in our academy. And I tell everybody, your life is going to be different. If you really immerse yourself for the next 42 days, your life is going to be different. I promise you. And everybody's like, oh, you're crazy. the guys, the men and women that show up every day, right? Not every day, but consistently, like you said, and they follow the diet plan and they check in with their, we do an accountability coach. We assign somebody to them. They check in with their accountability coach. The scale just drops. We also do in-body checks beginning and the end. And the in-body is like magic, dude. Like 20 pounds lost in 6 weeks,
Easy.
28 pounds.
They're down like 15 pounds in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. Muscle mass is up. You know what I mean? It's amazing what you can do if you just put in the time, right? And 6 weeks is nothing. Think about what 6 weeks is in a lifetime. It's nothing. So yeah, man. So but like you said, you take those calls, and adults are notorious for this. Yes. Adults will tell me what they can't do before they try. That drives me crazy. And then they'll look at a guy like you and someone like me and be like, well, it's easy for you. Not always, bro. It was not always easy. You know, I was fat too. So yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it takes, and that's, you know, I look at it as, you know, in our position, it's a blessing that we can help people navigate through that, because it is a disease. I feel like when you have that negative self-talk and you can help someone control that or navigate through that, you know, it's our job to help them become better people. And what better platform do we have?
Yeah. And you know, when I look at someone like you, right? You're you know, you got a great dental practice and you're black belt in jiu-jitsu, and you would be like someone who's got all the answers, but you even talk about insecurities that you have to fight through.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So we all go through it. It's just a matter of developing that muscle, right? That little muscle that is like, you know, your insecurities never go away. They're in the corner doing push-ups and pull-ups. And when they come back, they're going to come back even stronger. So you have to develop that mental toughness, right? To fight them off. And that just comes with showing up every day, you know, you doing your morning routines. Like you pray and you do you go out in the sun and do your cold plunge. And it's just consistency is the key. And I love that you talked about that so much, because without it, we're susceptible to those insecurities that are in the corner doing push-ups and pull-ups, and they're going to come back stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah. So, you know, like your body's a beautiful, like it's like a song, it's like a melody, and everything has to be in balance. So when I'm doing push-ups and pull-ups, and then the other guys having that negative self-talk, what it's really telling them is, hey, maybe you need to rise up. And now when you're blocking that negative talk, when it's actually trying to bring you up, sometimes you have to listen to the anxiety. Maybe you have stuff that you need to take care of, but you're not taking care of it. That's creating more depression, more anxiety. A lot of the time it's like, maybe I won't fight what it's telling me, but maybe I'll use it and listen to it, and then get myself up and use it as a motivation to go start something or go do something. Like right?
Yeah, that's where the breakthroughs happen, right? You can't have a breakthrough if you ignore it, right? When those insecurities come and you start having that I don't want to say negative self-talk, but like you start thinking about things that you're neglecting. It's all about the things that you're not doing, right? That make you feel inferior, that make you feel uncomfortable. But when you take that all in, maybe even write them down.
Yes.
Knock them out one by one, right? Maybe knock them out one by one. You're going to feel so much better. I go through that all the time, man. And I write a lot of stuff down. Like, you know, all the negative thoughts. Where's that coming from? Why is it in my head? What am I not doing? Right?
Exactly. So they say like the truth will set you free, right? But the truth will also offend you. So like when you're having that self-talk, maybe I should go do some push-ups. A lot of people will take offense to that from their own self-talk. Yeah. And so now that balance is completely off. So we really have to listen to ourselves, and your brain is your body has your body's the best doctor. Your body can heal itself. You just got to listen to it and give it the right tools.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and if you don't mind, I'm going to do a lightning round of questions at the end, but I want to ask you a couple of questions because I want to hear this from black belts. I'm really curious because everybody has a different answer, and I love it. So I want to ask you two questions. One is about lineage, and the other one is about legacy. So let's talk about lineage first. From this point on, when you start promoting your own black belts, what do you want them to all have in common?
I want them to have the consistency
Mm,
and perseverance, and no consistency, perseverance, and character.
mm,
Because as a black belt, you've been doing it so long, the skills are going to be there.
yeah.
But just because you're a black belt doesn't mean you're going to be a good person,
Yeah.
right? So that character is so important, and we talk about that all the time. The perseverance is part of the character. The consistency also is part of the character. So what those three things, persistence, consistency, and just being a good person, I think is most important.
Yeah. One thing that everyone has in common when I ask that question, no one talks about jujitsu. It's all
Mm,
about being a good person. You know what I mean? Having those
yeah,
qualities. I
yeah,
love that. I love the answer so far. And I may write a book about it one day, like, what black belts want out of their black belts. But
yes.
now let's talk about legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to, when people see me, they'll know that, hey, he didn't have, he just had a hard will. If there's a will, there's a way. I can depend on him. I can trust him. He was a good person. There's a book called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that's actually the first chapter, Inside Out Theory. So you actually you write your own eulogy.
Wow.
And if you actually picture that, oh, what do you want to be remembered as? Oh, then you write your own eulogy. Oh, yeah, he was a great person. Like he was a competitive spirit, but a gracious loser.
Mm.
And I just want to be known as a good person and just live the way Jesus lived, because he was the only perfect person who ever walked that. And I'm just striving to be like that person.
I love it. I love it, man. Yeah. It's funny about those books because that's where the hard work is. That first chapter is where the hard work is, right? There's another book that I love. It's a sales book. It's a sales training book called You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar.
Mm.
And it's by David Sandler, and he was like, the Sandler training, a sales method is like very, very well known. But when I was in, my corporate job as a salesperson, we would talk about that book all the time. We did all the Sandler training and all that other stuff, but no one wanted to talk about the first 4 chapters. It was always about going into the first meeting with your client or making that cold call and how to do the cold call. The first 4 chapters about peeling yourself open and seeing who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the work is, right? All that sales stuff, we can sell, right? You can put up an image, right? And play a role and sell. But yeah, writing your own eulogy, dude, that would be, yeah, I think everyone should go through that. Yeah. Robert, thank you so much for being on today, man. I really appreciate this. And this has been probably one of my favorite. This has got to be the top 5 podcasts I've done, because
So excited.
great
So
conversation,
excited
man. Yeah. And please, when we stop record, I'd like to, stay in touch and see you at Master Worlds, and I'll be by the mat and cheering you on.
Let's do it, man. Where's the
Right,
lightning round?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the lightning round. My bad.
All right,
Yes.
let's go.
People would kill me. Dude, I forget to do this and I hear about it. So,
Oh
all
my
right.
God.
All right, here we go. All right. Name a superpower you would like to have.
Luck.
Say your favorite word in Spanish.
Bueno.
Which of the 7 dwarfs would describe you?
Sleepy.
Yeah. This is bad. I shouldn't ask this one. When was the last time you crapped your pants? Mine was 2nd grade. Oh gosh. Okay. What's the worst gift you've ever received?
Socks.
Ooh, nice. Favorite carnival food?
Cookies.
What's your are you a dog or cat person?
Dog.
What's one top bucket list item?
Parasailing.
Are you a 1 episode at a time person, or do you binge?
Binge.
Would you prefer physical or mental strength?
Mental.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Do you have your own Netflix account, or do you use someone else's?
I have 4.
Do you really? You have 4.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Robert, thank you so much for being on, man. And I'll see you real soon, man.
For sure. Thank you so
All right,
much. Keep in touch.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, hold on one second. Let me just stop record.